Causation. Was the breach of duty a necessary condition of the occurrence of the harm? In order to achieve the element of causation, it's a two-limbed effect that we must achieve first. We must achieve the first limb, which is factual causation, and then the second limb, which is the scope of liability. Now let's examine factual causation first of all. What would happen if the defendant didn't do something or took precautions? Would the plaintiff's injury still have happened if things were different? Whether or not and why responsibility for the harm should be imposed on the party in breach? What would the plaintiff have done if the defendant was not in breach? These are aspects to which you've got to look at in relation to factual causation. Once we can obtain some of those, then we can then move to the scope. As per the scope of liability, it is appropriate for the scope of liability of the person in breach to extend to the harm so caused. For the purpose of deciding the scope of liability, the court is to consider, among other relevant things, whether or not and why responsibility for the harm should be imposed on the party who is in breach of the duty. Now, once we've obtained both of those, then we have causation. Without both of them, with just factual causation or with just the scope of liability being achieved, there is no causation. So, although such policy changes to psychological injury cases are highly likely to satisfy the reasonable foreseeability element concerning a duty of care regarding breach, the policy changes appear too far removed to satisfy the limb of causation. So what that says is, it's quite easy to establish there is a breach in regards to a duty of care, then determining a case of causation is a different thing, so being able to achieve reasonable foreseeability is quite easy as an element in most cases. But when it comes to causation, that's where a lot of claims seem to fail.